Hey everybody, this is Alex Krupski once again along with my co-host Jake Hoffman. We are on episode 12 of the Millennials in Print podcast, making progress, getting to 20 pretty quick here. We have Jeff Landherr on the show today. He is a production supervisor in the press room.
Thanks,
Did I get that right?
Thanks, Jake.
I got that right?
Yeah, you got it right.
I got it right. All right. He's going to take us through working in the press room, what it means to be exact in color, which we pride ourselves on here at Arandell, and we'll see where it goes from there. To start, though, I think it would be really interesting to hear kind of your career path, like really where you started and how you got to this point.
Well, I guess I started 32 years ago here, long time, but it started kind of funny how I got involved here is because shortly after my twins were born, I was in auto sales and financing, and it was childcare that was kind of eating us up. So I knew somebody, I had a relative that worked in the electrical department here, and he says, I think I can get you in here at third shift, and then that would alleviate our childcare problem. So I'm like, okay, time for a move. So when I first got here, I really didn't think of it as a career at the time. I just thought, okay, this is going to help us out family-wise. Yeah. And then shortly afterwards, I saw all the potential of overtime and moving up, and I could see that there was a career path.
Yeah.
That and being mechanical, like I like to do, I like to work on old cars. I like to rip things apart, put them back together. I could see that doing that out in the press room, where, I can start, working on stuff. And I thought that just the print itself was amazing. How you take a roller with ink on it, put it on a plate, and the plate goes onto a blanket, and then a blanket onto it. It was just amazing how all those four colors can make, a magazine or a catalog like we print here. And it was like, wow, this is really cool. So I just delved into it and really tried to absorb like a sponge everything that I could learn and try to progress to the next level.
So that's awesome. So you really came in with no print experience.
None at all.
No background in print.
No.
Wow. That's
restaurant
awesome.
management and early on, and like I said, auto sales. So there was no, like I said, no print. I didn't go to school for it.
Yeah.
So I wasn't even exposed to any of that before I got here.
And
it was really tough to get in here at the time too, because
I've heard that too.
You almost had to know somebody because it was that, family members were, taking over and coming in. Your kids would come in and you would train them, and then they'd take over.
Print was the hot marketing channel then too, so I'm sure Arandell wasn't alone in that it was hard to get into any printer. It was the hot marketing channel to go to.
Right.
That must have been a crazy time. And too, we were kind of talking, back then it was analog, right? You were doing things by hand, changing colors, adjusting that rather than it's all digital now.
When I started here, none of these presses that we currently own were here. So I've outlasted all the presses.
Still running stronger.
That's a milestone. That's a milestone.
The first couple of presses that I remember were actually going into the units and
twisting it, right?
Turning the keys by hand to get color. Now we're into an age where everything is computer. We're going into color control systems and that can monitor ink densities right on press, and it's truly amazing. I mean, every aspect of the actual printing process, how it's elevated since I started here.
I'm going to ask a question, and I think it'll be interesting. So obviously, when you had like the original presses that you were talking about when you first got here, and they being analog, I guess my question is, although the technology has made it easier, right, in some respects to manage, has it also made it a little bit harder? And where I'm going with that is, if you think about things from like the 1950s, right, they just seem like they're mechanical, they're built to last. If something breaks,
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and now
I mean,
it's computers and chips.
Sounds
mean,
like
it's
a
not
Ford
like
commercial. Built Ford
Built
Tough.
Ford Tough. Yeah.
I mean, it's not like my 76 Trans Am where I go in there and there's no computers. It's just an engine and suspension.
Yeah, that's what I'm almost saying.
And
like,
easy to work on. I work on my normal cars, and it's like you got to have computer technology. You got to, you got to know wiring. I mean, it's so the presses today actually take a lot of support, not only from the press room, but from your mechanics and your electricians, because it's kind of one of those too where we will get to a problem and we'll say, oh, that happened a couple years ago or whatever. What did we do to fix it? So there's some repetitive some of that stuff, but it doesn't happen often. But you're right. There's a lot more a different theory of keeping the presses running, as they would say.
Yeah.
So in just going back real quick to kind of your career path, what took you to this point, I'm really curious to hear more about how, like, the journey of a pressman, really how they get to that first pressman standpoint, because were you there at some point, or at what point did you switch over to manage supervision?
Well, I spent about 8 years as what we would call a jogger, which is now what we call a PA press assistant one.
Right.
I spent about 8 years because that's how long it took to, before people would retire or whatever. And then I spent probably about 4 years as a roll tender, loading rolls into the back. And then I had the opportunity then to move and run color, which I think I was there for about 6 years, and then another 6 as a first pressman running the presses. So I got to a point where 4 years ago, I decided that enough crawling around on the floor, and I could use maybe my expertise of knowing the presses in helping the younger people and the people moving up into the new positions, even as a supervisor. So I've got a lot of people who come to me and ask me questions, just not, hey, I'm going to be sick tomorrow, but actually ask me about, I got a problem,
right?
How do you fix this or whatever, and I still have some knowledge there where, hey, look at this or look at that. The technology hasn't gone beyond me yet. Yet.
So yeah, then the second pressman and first pressman, I'm more curious hearing about, because for our audience at home that might not be familiar with that printing process, it's a really specialized trade in order to see color.
And then actually, what we're doing right now is we're putting a program together to accelerate to get to the second pressman. And just to elaborate, what the second pressman does is he actually takes control of the color of the sheet, more yellow, more blue, less blue, controls the units, and the registration of the product that we're producing. So that's his main job, is to keep an eye on the quality of the color, match the proofs that we are supplied with, and work with our QC department and customers, to achieve what we're trying to do.
And to learn, and I guess to learn how to control a sheet, is that often done by just watching, or are you kind of like, would I stand next to you and kind of just watch what you're doing, or is there some sort of?
Well, we do it as a two-step process. I mean, we sometimes try to get an experienced person to work with you. Yeah. We have 2 presses that still have what we call two councils that you can work from.
Okay.
So we like to use that as a training tool.
Sure.
So that one guy can work one side of the sheet, and then the other works the other half, and then can still teach and learn. The other is just getting into the unit, and when we got a problem, getting involved and changing a roller, how to set a roller, and what to look for, what we call ink and water balance. And so there's a lot to absorb when you get to the second pressman, and that's the most challenging, in my opinion, the most challenging position out there on the floor is to learn that second pressman.
Jump from roll tender to second pressman.
Second pressman.
I think one really interesting thing, So I worked at Quad for a summer, but it was just
Boo.
watching.
I'm
I
just
know.
kidding.
Wow. But I basically just watched an auto stacker do the job for me. They knew I was going to college.
Right.
There's no reason to train me up on anything. But Dan Valen, our supervisory
Pressroom
pressroom
supervisor.
supervisor, he had me take the color test.
The
And so
Munsell Color Test.
The Munsell Color Test. I want our audience to hear a little bit more about that. So if you could share a little bit more about the color test.
Well, it's basically not like the color test that you go into your eye doctor and they give you the book with the numbers and you see the
Red.
numbers.
That one's easy.
Blue, yellow. Okay.
And see, this one's a little more intense. It's actually tints of colors of like red to blue, green to pink, and they're very, very, very slight, and there's about 30 in each box, and you got to put them in the order of the tints. And some people do well on certain colors, like some people may do really well on reds, but then they get to the blues and the blue greens, and they don't see very well. So everybody's got a different color eye when it comes to that. Some people ace it.
Right.
Some people are
98%.
I think I hit like a B plus. I was like you need to hit a 90th percentile or something. I was like 2 points below. So I'll never be a first.
We're
pressman.
keeping you out in the bindery.
Right. But you need to pass the Munsell Color Test the first time you take it in order to become a first
it's
pressman.
an important tool. It's not the only one that we use for the criteria. You also have to have some mechanical ability and be able to troubleshoot problems on press. That's another area that we try to look at too when the person's going to move up into the next position is your troubleshooting ability and how to think on your feet and solve a problem, because we all know in high-speed printing you got a problem, you could have 10,000 impressions off in a matter of a minute, 2 minutes, and you don't want that type of quality or waste.
Yeah, and you also don't want the downtime either, right?
Right.
So it's a little bit about identifying, troubleshooting.
And presses
getting it
don't
up.
like going down.
No,
you
they're meant
shut
to run.
them down.
Right.
They take a while to get going again.
That being said, something inevitably happens. Wrong happens almost every day, right? The longest, what is the longest that you remember continuous run? I think it was like 28 hours, if I remember right.
Yeah, it's been a while because of, in my opinion, the materials that we use now versus the materials that we might have used 10, 15 years ago, where we could get 3 million impressions maybe out of a set of plates. We don't get that anymore. So, but yeah, 28 hours is probably pretty close. I think it's probably been longer than that. I probably would say we probably, if you look back, way back in the archives, we probably had presses that ran 48 hours without going down.
Yeah, and I think part of that though is probably the changing work mix too. You're dealing with more versioning, shorter runs.
Right.
You're not gonna.
It's kind of one of those where
Right.
all the pieces have to fall in place to, you got to have a really large run, and like you said, we have a lot more versioning now. So
quantities.
we have a lot more shorter runs, but we still have some bigger runs, and these machines still run 85,000, 90,000 impressions an hour. So that takes maintenance and maintaining to keep them running like that.
One of the things, so we kind of started going a little bit on it, but this kind of transition from analog to digital, was that something that was kind of like, okay, now this part's going to be automated, now this part's going to be automated, now, or was it more like we're going from analog to now it's digital?
No, I think it pretty much kind of melted in as the years go on. Okay, well, now we got a better automatic register system. Okay, now we got a better color control system. Now we got roll stands or robots, So, I mean, it's been a transition over the years. It wasn't like one day, okay, all that's gone, and then, boom, oh boy, I got I got a whole press from
Like
one end to the other to learn. So,
Right.
you start with one thing, and then, but some of the equipment we got out there is still 20, 25 years old and still
runs great.
runs great. So,
Yeah. Is there, do you think for someone coming into a press role in today, do you think it's as important to have kind of like knowing that you don't have a background in print, but because of the technology, has it made it like easier maybe?
I think in some degrees it has. I mean, we've gotten into a technology-based, group of people, cell phones and computers. And so, I think some of the younger people can handle that stuff pretty quick getting around on the computers. But you still need a mechanical aptitude. And really, I think like right now, because of the way print has been in the last 15, 20 years with the roller coaster ride we've had, we went through the period where we didn't need to hire many people, and now we're in a period where holy crap, we've got 15 guys ready to retire in the next 5 to 8 years, and we've got a sales force that wants to sell more product, and we got to run more presses, and we're like, this is where this fast track of getting people to second pressman is coming. I think this is a great opportunity for young people right now if they want a career.
Yeah.
They won't spend 8 years jogging
like you did,
like
right.
I did.
Right.
They won't spend 5 years rolling. We got joggers now that are moving up into second pressman roles after 4 or 5 years of being here.
Yeah.
And that's a lot on them because, sometimes longevity helps learn more. Then, okay, we're throwing you into a spot now, and now you got to learn what we learned in 8 years. You got to learn in 3 months.
I think that's a good transition. So I think that challenge is not unique to Arandell either. I think
Right.
that a lot of people that worked in print, they are getting to retirement age, and there's this gap in the workforce that we've talked about before. So without sharing too much of the sauce with inside of Arandell, what is it about that training process that you're really trying to instill in some of these guys to move up?
Well, I look for a lot of self-motivation, the big key. I mean, you're going to want to, even as a, jogger or a roll tender, even the entry level, you want to get into the print units when they're down and learn. Get in there with the guy. Even though you might not move up for 3-4 years, everything that you can learn up to that point, is only going to be to your benefit. I know when I first started here, we had pressmen, and we're getting back to some of that, but they would make us get in there.
Roll the sleeves up.
Yeah, you're taking the rollers out, you're putting them in, you're going to set them, and then we're going to check your work. And that was the way you learned. Some of that we're getting back to right now.
Nice.
Trying to get these newer people more involved in learning the process. And like I said, this new program we're coming up with, I think, is going to get us back to that track too, of teaching them about theory of color, how a dot goes on the paper, more of the science of it, and the actual, getting in there and working on them. So people will get involved and want to move up.
Right.
Because that's what we're going to need. We're going to need people to replace people like me.
We need at least 10 more.
Well, we know it's not going to be Alex.
And that's a hard thing to do.
I already failed the color test.
Yeah, he's out. So
He's out.
that's me.
Well, honestly, I mean, I think that we covered everything that was on my plate. Do you have anything else that's on your plate you want to?
I mean, yeah, I think one of the things that would be kind of interesting to talk a little bit about is, as you were kind of moving through, you sort of your career here at Arandell, why stay for 32 years here? when there's so much demand for guys, out in other, print companies and stuff like that. So why Arandell, I guess, would be kind of my question.
Well, honestly, for me, when it all started, was the people I worked with. It didn't matter whether you were in sales or IT or wherever in this company. I always tried to even get involved with those positions a little bit. And so when you do that, I think, again, you feel like it's a family. And I think that's important culture for any company, is to feel like your family. And I think that's why I stayed around as long as I said. I always used to have a quote, or a quote that I didn't like hearing, is people would say, well, I'm not going to do that. That's not my job.
Yeah.
And it's been a pet peeve of mine for 32 years. If someone comes and asks me to go back into the roles or whatever and see if you can find this or find that, or I'll go do it, So I may not be good at it, but
but I'll try.
I'll try.
Okay, he's on record. Jeff, will you help me edit this podcast and get this to
That may not be
video?
a good thing.
Just kidding. But no, I think that brings up a good point.
But I would try.
Yeah.
Okay, you're in.
Yeah.
That's all it takes. I think that brings up a good point about culture, and the importance of building a culture, though, is that creating that sense of community. It's asking questions. It's getting involved with people that you wouldn't normally work with on a day-to-day basis.
Right. Absolutely.
Great. Well, yeah, I just wanted to express my gratitude for, your long, awesome career here at Arandell, and then for coming on a podcast on a whim. And yeah, it's been great. So if there's any other kind of like final thoughts you want to hit on, now's your
chance. Like I said, I thank you for having me. I think I hope that I got out there what we need to get out there. But I hope that if any young people out there are like where I was 32 years ago, and say, hey, maybe give that a shot. That it is a career move at this point, not just a
not just a job,
temporary job.
Yeah, it's not a job. So that's what I would say.
That's great.
Perfect.
That's great.
Well said.
Thanks again for joining
Thanks
the
for
show,
coming on.
Jeff. Really
Not a
appreciate
problem.
it again.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for joining us for
Thanks.
episode 12, and we will see you in the next episode 13. Thanks, guys.